would be how they found finance for development. The second is how they managed debt. The third is how they went about the capitalization of development banks or multilateral institutions. Those are the three, and I believe I did share it with them ahead of time. For the sitting heads of states or their representatives, also three questions, and each gets to answer the same question. Again, it's a conversation. Feel free to build off what your colleagues say. The first would be their outlook on the global political economy as it is now. The second would be how they break out and rise from this fractured context today that we see, and I'll provide a little introduction for each question. And then the third, we'll look at the African Continental Free Trade Area and how we can build trade and investment flows between our regions and within our regions. If we have time, and I doubt that, there will be a common question to all of you about the currency we should trade in as we look at what is happening to the dollar and other international currencies on the global economy. So that is our agenda. So let me start with the former heads of states. If they can speak briefly, and a mic will be brought to you. So brought two mics. If they can speak to financing development, how they raised development finance. On the flip side of that is debt. Some found debt, which made it challenging to raise money. Some raised money, which got them into debt. So they can speak about these two. You can start with either debt, or you can start with raising finance for development. So that's the first question to the former presidents. And if you signal, I have Marie and I have Mark, they will bring you a mic. And if it is in French, I have Marie who can translate. So if we can see from any, can you please bring the mic to Chief Obasanjo, please?
Yes, I will. Thank you very much, Prof. Just to be very clear, we have the sitting president of Malawi and the president of Gabon also here with us. Okay. His Excellency Lazarus McCarthy Chakwera and His Excellency Bryce Oligu Nguema, who will be joining us later. They are here. But let me go to Baba.
Okay.
Your Excellency.
Thank you very much. I probably will say that when I took over as Chief Executive of Nigeria in 1999, I will not go the way they say it. They talk of empty purse. Mine was below empty purse. Because empty purse means that there's nothing in the pocket. Mine was, I inherited a debt of $3.5 billion every year. And I had a little bit less than that in the purse, in the reserve. And yet, we had to do development. So the first thing is, what can we do to stop the empty purse and start filling up the purse? So, of course, I will come back to that later. I have to go for at all costs. It took almost 5 years to achieve that. In fact, 6 years, but it was achieved. So that made me to be able to save $3.5 billion. And when I was paying $3.5 billion every year for debt relief, the quantum of debt was not going down. It was not going down because of interest rate and what they call penalties. When you don't pay in time, they penalize you. When anything happens, they penalize you. So you're now getting debt upon debt. Now, but what did I do? Or what did we do? One, we had to stop waste. And that is very important. There's a lot of waste in government. And if you look hard, you will see where the waste is. And you cannot remove waste completely, but you can drastically reduce waste. And we did drastically reduce waste. The next is corruption. Oh, they give corruption all sorts of names. Whatever name they give corruption, corruption is corruption. And corruption is treated with development. And development go together. Don't deceive yourself. Whichever way you go about it, corruption is inimical to development. And we found that out. So the I sent to the National Assembly is the bill to stop corruption and punish corruption. Now that bill stayed in National Assembly for 18 months. And the members of National Assembly watered the bill down. Passed the bill the way I sent it. Most of them will be in jail after they have left. After they have left the National Assembly. Now, so there is reduction of waste, substantially reducing corruption. Resources. There are resources internally that can be mobilized if only attention is paid to it and is carried out well. That is on what we do. And of course, there's also mobilization of resources from outside. They are there. And I will put it this way. Money to develop or fund to develop Africa is out there internally and externally. It's how to get that fund mobilized internally, stop corruption and waste, unnecessary luxury policy, and then incentivize money from outside.
Yes.
Let it come in, make sure it stays in, and make sure it does what it's meant to do.
Thank you.
Now, let me just end on the note.
Thank you. Yes.
Talking about corruption, there was a situation when, and I said, look, bring for me, let me see what are these debt that we are paying for. How do we encode them? Where are they from? And there's a case like this. A state, part of the debt that we had to pay for, a state borrowed $10 million. Turnkey, carpet manufacturing, turnkey. They drew up the money completely. They had a commission video report. The land was not cleared. The land. I saw this. I said I wouldn't pay. Then they showed me the small print where it says whatever the money, once the money has been signed and the instruction has been given by the borrower for deployment of the money, responsibility is that of the borrower to pay. So I had to pay the money that was not even, did not come to a project that it was meant to come to. And that is the sort of thing that we suffer. We had to make sure that we stop that. Then we will have money to do what we need to do for development.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I have been instructed that we have a hard stop at 12. We still do?
Yes, I think so. 12 o'clock, is it? Yeah. I mean, former President Obasanjo's words actually echoed what Professor Sachs was saying. Of capital, there's a shortage of attitude and strategy to tap it.
Indeed. So, please give the mic to His Excellency.
Thank you very much, Moderator. When I was in office, we mobilized our finances mainly from domestic sources. As you all know, we have policy banks, Ethiopian Development Bank and the Ethiopian Commercial Bank, which are all state-owned banks. And that helped us a lot by generating savings in Ethiopia. I think that was the main reason we were able to finance the mega dam you all know, which is the Renaissance Dam of Ethiopia, from domestic sources, which is around $5 billion US. Second, our rating by the time was B+, so we were able to generate $1 billion US to build 14 industrial parks in Ethiopia, which is an exemplary. Now AfreximBank is emulating and continuing on supporting African nations. And I think this is investing in productive sector is one of the key. We are not borrowing money for consumption. We are borrowing money for productive sector development. That was the thing. And we went to the East, and China has supported us a lot in infrastructure development in Ethiopia. You know that private sector cannot be competitive if you don't have proper infrastructure in place. And we were able to invest in a railway project that goes from Addis Ababa to Djibouti, which is 800 kilometers of railway, electrified railway, a green railway project that was supported by China Exim Bank. So we try to diversify our sources of finance when I was in office, and it continued on. Of course, it has a genesis not only in my term, but before me. My predecessor was one of the icons, African icon leader who championed for this to happen. By the way, I still believe that we championed for BRICS formation. Obasanjo is here, President Obasanjo is, I'm sorry, Baba. You, President Mbeki, Prime Minister Meles, and President Bouteflika, you four of you are the basis for BRICS formation. It's not from outside. So I think we need to diversify our sources, even in the future, going to the East, as Professor Sachs was saying, we have to utilize all sources of financing. So the debt issue is still a problem because the ratings, even though we got B+, but nonetheless, that has been declining from time to time. So we need to have rating institutions that are African-based, understanding Africa properly. Thank you so much.
Thank you. If we could go to His Excellency Macky Sall, and then from there we'll go to Most Honorable Patterson of Jamaica. So Macky Sall.
Former President of Senegal.
Que nous ayons besoin de traduire la question qui a été posée, Monsieur le Président Macky Sall.
Thank you very much. I will speak in French. Je voudrais d'abord remercier AfreximBank pour cette assemblée annuelle et féliciter le président Oraman pour le remarquable travail qu'il a mené à la tête de l'institution. Je salue les chefs d'État ici présents ainsi que les anciens chefs d'État et je voudrais distinguer le président Olusegun Obasanjo. Je salue tous les autres. Alors la question qui est posée est une question pertinente. Arrivé à la tête du Sénégal, naturellement, comme dans la plupart de nos pays, nous avons des situations difficiles. Mais ce qui compte en économie et dans les finances, c'est d'abord que le pays inspire et le leader par rapport au marché, par rapport aux partenaires. Cela m'a permis très rapidement de mobiliser assez de ressources pour financer le programme économique que j'avais conçu qui s'appelait le plan Sénégal émergent. Sur une décennie, nous avons mobilisé plus de antérieurement mobilisé. Cela se traduit naturellement par une modernisation de l'infrastructure du pays sur le plan de l'infrastructure routière, autoroutière, sur le triplement des capacités en électricité. Au moment où je partais, le pays était exportateur d'énergie électrique. Cela aussi grâce au secteur privé qui a cru et qui a financé dans la production électrique indépendante. Alors, tout cela, bien sûr, a été contrainte. Évolue dans un environnement contraint. Et la dette, elle revient avec un fardeau puisque les mécanismes aujourd'hui qui sont en marche ne permettent pas aux pays africains de s'endetter dans des conditions optimales. Ça, c'est une donnée qui est réelle et que nous devons enlever avec, naturellement, nos partenaires. La semaine prochaine se tiendra à Séville la réunion sur le financement du développement. J'ai lancé un appel, comme la plupart de nos collègues ici présents, pour qu'il y ait une action décisive sur la réduction de l'endettement du continent et des pays en développement de façon générale. Non pas parce que nous ne voulons pas payer la dette, nous la payons et nous la payons même parfois beaucoup plus cher que nous avons emprunté. Mais il faut que la dette multilatérale publique, la dette bilatérale publique puisse avoir une décision importante à Séville, notamment dans les secteurs sociaux comme l'éducation, la santé, etc. Mais il nous faut compter sur nous-mêmes en mobilisant nos ressources domestiques. Pour cela, l'Afrique doit encore faire des efforts dans la fiscalité de chaque pays pour davantage mobiliser l'épargne, mais avoir aussi une fiscalité juste et une assiette plus élargie. Les contraintes pour mobiliser toute notre épargne restent encore dans les mécanismes de mobilisation. C'est pourquoi la digitalisation doit permettre à nos administrations d'arriver à une meilleure mobilisation. Mais il faut une synergie entre le secteur privé africain et le secteur public. Et il nous faut surtout, et je termine par là, augmenter les capacités de nos banques, AfreximBank, Banque africaine de développement, la BOAD, African Finance, ainsi que les autres organismes. Les pays doivent mettre encore de l'argent dans le capital de nos institutions. C'est la seule façon d'en faire des institutions crédibles, à même d'emprunter sur le marché des capitaux et surtout de répondre à nos besoins à nous. Parce qu'aujourd'hui, que ce soit nos banques de développement, elles dépendent plus des orientations qui sont données par les partenaires non régionaux. Et pour cela, c'est à nous, Africains, de mettre les ressources qu'il faut, secteur privé comme secteur public, et je m'en arrête là. Je vous remercie.
Merci infiniment, Excellence Macky Sall, ancien président de la République du Sénégal. Please proceed with the next.
Okay, so we will go next to His Excellency or Most Honorable Percival James Patterson, the longest-serving Prime Minister of Jamaica. So we heard just now from the former President of Senegal, and before him, the former Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Haile Mariam Desalegn Boshe. So, good morning.
I'm mindful that the topic of this plenary has to do with the role of the multilateral financial institutions of Africa and their role in accelerating development in a polarized world. And therefore, I want to make some comments which are more of a general in nature, because I think they apply right across the board to the 6 regions of Africa, despite the fact separated by an ocean, and the 6th region is on the other side of the ocean. And I think it's true to say that we share more than a common ancestry. And the group of leadership to which I belong came into office in a world where the international institutions determine the policy within which we were forced to operate, and the institutions that guide them were not created by us, and they were not intended for the benefit and the development of us. And therefore, central to my presentation is the fact that we have to devise together our own economic strategies, not in accordance with traditional policy models created for others which are not suited for our particular countries. I remind you that the IMF is owned by 16.9% by one country, and loans have to be approved by 80% of the shareholding interests. So it's not only in the Security Council that there's a veto power, but also in the financial institutions, there's a veto power. And as much as we are striving in the world to have Africa included in the Security Council in its own right as a permanent member, we have to make sure that the veto power in the IMF is not cast to our disadvantage. In fact, the global north has 9 times the south in both the institutions, the IMF. I say this because time many of us situation where there is not only an escalation of debt, in some cases to pay our debt obligations. So we're getting further and further into a big hole. And this is despite the fact in particular is abundantly rich in resources. it is the only continent in the whole world that best of everything, whether it is in terms of value, like diamonds or gold, or minerals like lithium and uranium, energy resources that include wind and water, in addition to energy and gas.
Okay.
And for a very, very long time, has been ensuring that we have the resources available to us to develop the health of our people, but of greatest significance of our people, which is critical and essential to development, and particularly in the age of technology. In Jamaica and elsewhere in the Caribbean, we have had to take some very hard decisions. And that includes, in some cases, disposing some of the assets previously owned and operated by the state to release the funding to be able to provide for education and development in its broadest sense.
Okay.
And I think, please let me finish. I think if I don't get the opportunity of saying anything else again in this debate, what we have, we must own, we must control, and we must deploy the income and the benefit of it for the development of our people, because our people come first. We have to take charge of charting our own destiny and no longer be subject to the dictates of others. And my plea, after years of involvement and coming out of the pavilion to share this with you, it is time for us who have the most abundant wealth of resources, including our population and our young people, to regard the past as prologue and to take the future into our own hands to make Africa greater than ever it was before.
Thank
The
you.
longest serving Prime Minister of Jamaica. Hold on a second. I'm actually going to grab this now because I want to go all the way from the Caribbean to the southeastern part of our great continent, Africa, because look at who we have here. The President of Malawi, ladies and gentlemen. the President of Malawi, Lazarus Chakwera.
Yes.
I have a mic here, and it's yours, Your Excellency, if you could please stand.
Okay. So for the current presidents, I shift to a different question, but they are connected. Okay. So we look at our current situation. We've had slower economic growth post-COVID. We have rising protectionism, and we see economic nationalism. And then we are seeing all these geopolitical conflicts. If you could share your thoughts on where you see the state of the global economy and its outlook. It's your thoughts. So how do you see the global economy and its outlook today?
Thank you very much. I would say that the African spirit is failing to be broken and will not be broken, because despite the challenges you mentioned, we are able to continue to have hope and cling on to hope, so that we can develop our continent, and in conjunction with CARICOM, all over the world, a system that truly proves resilient. And it means we have to make sure the production levels of our commodities, are upscaled. But not just that, because trading, which replaces aid in many ways as a positive thing, also means that we must trade not just in raw materials, but trade in materials that have added value right here on the continent, so that we are in the same vein creating jobs for millions of young people. As a young continent, we need to provide jobs to these young people. This is what Malawi 2063 vision talks about. How does Malawi become a self-reliant, all-inclusively wealthy nation that is industrialized? If we continue to export raw materials, and then even those who produce are not empowered to produce more and of high quality consistently, so that we are able then to link up with the other nations. This is a question that we are facing head on, because we believe that Africa can really become the giant it is, because it is already one. But we need to make sure that means of production and beneficiation of what Africa has is done right here on the continent. And then it means we'll cooperate more as well, in order for us to make sure that the barriers that got created, not by our own making, but in someone's scheming to make us what we are supposed to be in their sight, always down there. Some of these policies have also been inadvertently adopted by those of us in leadership, where we still want to make sure we put the least right where supposedly they are supposed to be. But people like smallholder farmers in Malawi or subsistence farmers who are working hard to produce even food that the majority consumes, they are the least paid. We said that must change. The economics that says the least paid food stuff will make sure the inflation doesn't rise is a false one, because it penalizes those that are working hard to feed everybody else and to remain poor. We must find solutions that then raises everyone. Any chain is as strong as its weakest link. And in a community like Malawi finds itself fighting poverty, we want to create wealth instead. And so we have developed an ATM and AM strategy where agricultural production and commercialization is emphasized, with mega farms on the scale. Irrigation, we're developing right now what will be the largest irrigation system in Southern Africa, the Sheer Valley Transformation Program. And we want to make sure that agriculture then becomes not subsistence, where you just want food for one day, but produce quantities that can feed the rest of our brethren across borders. And then tourism. Malawi is the most beautiful country in terms of what the lake has to offer, things that you can't find on planet Earth. But we need infrastructure. Infrastructure that says everybody can come, an ecosystem that says even the Caribbean can visit, which they already do with some of our music, tourism, concerts and stuff. But mining, we have discovered now, we never thought the rare earth, the graphite, the rutile, the largest deposits of rutile, 97% pure titanium, that is yet to be, exploited, not exploited by exploiting Malawians, but exploited for the benefit of Malawians. And we need investors that then become partners to unlock some of these. We have all manner of mines, but manufacturing has to happen in the country. For example, the mega farms I just mentioned. We need to have systems where these farms are and have factories there, add value to what we produce, the coffee, the tea, the tobacco, and macadamia, everything. So when we sell, we have the benefits of those who buy as well as those of us who sell. That would be my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. As the mic goes to His Excellency Mohamedou Issoufou, and after him to His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo, this is the question. You are both champions of the African Continental Free Trade Area and of multilateral institutions. How can we leverage the African Continental Free Trade Area to foster greater trade and investment flows between African and Caribbean nations? The African Export-Import Bank has been a vital vehicle facilitating collaboration between the two regions. What are your expectations of AfreximBank's strategic role going forward? So, His Excellency Issoufou, His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo, please.
Merci. Effectivement, j'en profiterai. Bon, je le ferai plus tard, Monsieur le Président.
Bien, merci. Je voudrais à mon tour saluer Orama et féliciter AfreximBank pour cette 32e Assemblée Générale. Je salue également tous les chefs d'État ici présents. Avant de répondre à votre question, je voudrais rappeler que j'ai dirigé le Niger pendant 2 mandats, de 2011 à 2021. J'étais arrivé avec un programme, avec des priorités bien déterminées, et j'avais évalué ce programme à 23 milliards de dollars. J'ai pu en mobiliser 22 milliards à partir des ressources internes, 22 milliards à partir également des ressources externes, sous forme d'aide budgétaire, sous forme de prêts concessionnels et sous forme également de bons de trésor, d'obligations qu'on a pu placer sur le marché régional de l'UEMOA. Mais nous n'avons pas eu recours au marché financier international, parce que le marché financier international coûte très cher. Alors, pour revenir à votre question, l'Afrique, je dirais, a un agenda. L'agenda 2063. L'agenda de l'Afrique que nous voulons. Cet agenda ne peut être mis en œuvre de manière efficace que si nous accélérons l'intégration au niveau du continent, que si nous mettons en œuvre un certain nombre de projets phares contenus dans cet agenda, dont la zone de libre-échange continentale africaine, Mais la zone de libre-échange continentale africaine ne doit pas être perçue comme un projet isolé. C'est un projet qu'il faut mettre en œuvre en rapport avec les autres projets phares, par exemple le plan de développement des infrastructures en Afrique. Il nous faut développer l'énergie, il faut développer les infrastructures ferroviaires, il faut développer les infrastructures numériques, etc. Même chose pour le projet de développement de l'Afrique et le projet de développement agricole de l'Afrique. Tous doivent être mis en œuvre ensemble. La zone de libre-échange continentale africaine ne doit pas être perçue comme étant un projet isolé. Maintenant, il y a des obstacles. Je vais essayer d'aller vite parce que je sais que le temps est important. Je voudrais mettre l'accent sur deux problèmes que l'Afrique doit résoudre. Le premier problème, c'est celui de l'échange inégal. L'Afrique a des matières premières. L'Afrique est considérée aujourd'hui comme simple réservoir de matières premières, exportatrice de matières premières et importatrice de produits finis. À travers cet échange, l'Afrique s'appauvrit. Ce n'est pas l'Afrique seulement, de manière générale, les pays pauvres s'appauvrissent à travers l'échange inégal. J'ai un chiffre. En 2017, les pays pauvres ont perdu 2200 milliards de dollars à travers l'échange inégal. Je dis bien 2200 milliards de dollars à travers l'échange inégal. Par conséquent, une des priorités pour l'Afrique, c'est de créer des chaînes de valeur. Deuxième problème, je l'ai un peu évoqué en parlant du bilan de mes 10 ans au Niger, c'est l'architecture financière internationale qui est inéquitable. L'architecture financière internationale est inéquitable parce que les pays pauvres ont difficilement accès aux ressources du marché financier international. Ils y ont accès à des coûts très élevés. Les écarts de taux d'intérêt entre les pays du Sud et les pays du Nord sont très élevés. Là également, il y a un transfert de richesse qui se produit à travers les taux d'intérêt, à travers cette architecture financière internationale injuste. Nous avons à plusieurs reprises fait le plaidoyer pour la réforme de l'architecture financière internationale. On n'y est pas encore effectivement arrivé. Je donne un autre exemple de l'inéquité de l'architecture financière internationale. C'est la formule de calcul des quotes-parts au niveau du FMI pour les DTS. Vous savez que cette formule privilégie les pays développés dans la mesure où la pondération qui est faite prévoit un poids de 50% pour le PIB, un poids de 30% pour l'ouverture du marché, de l'économie du pays en question, un poids de 15% pour les fluctuations économiques et 5% pour les réserves. C'est une formule qui est inéquitable et qui ne profite pas aux pays pauvres. Maintenant, sur la ZLECAf, je lance un appel pour que ce projet puisse avancer assez rapidement. Et vous savez que nous avons, avec AfreximBank et avec le secrétariat de la zone de libre-échange continentale africaine, mis en place le système de panafricain de paiement. C'est un système extrêmement important, je pense, pour le processus de la zone de libre-échange continentale africaine, dans la mesure où il permet de faciliter les paiements transfrontaliers en monnaie locale, avec l'avantage que ces paiements transfrontaliers sont faits à moindre coût et dans des délais effectivement raisonnables. Aujourd'hui, on a beaucoup de pays africains et des pays des Caraïbes qui font partie de ce mécanisme. On lance un appel pour que les autres pays qui n'ont pas encore adhéré à ce mécanisme adhèrent à ce mécanisme, surtout dans la situation actuelle de multipolarisation du monde, surtout dans la situation actuelle où l'hégémonie d'un seul est contestée, surtout dans ce contexte donc, où l'Afrique a effectivement besoin d'accélérer le processus d'intégration. Et l'idéal serait, je pense, qu'on avance vers la mise en place des monnaies régionales et plus tard la monnaie commune africaine. Je regrette qu'un de mes regrets, quand j'étais président et champion de la monnaie unique de la CEDEAO, c'est de n'avoir pas pu faire aboutir ce projet de monnaie unique de la CEDEAO, alors qu'on était très proche du but, mais malheureusement, la Covid-19 a fait que les pays se sont éloignés du pacte de convergence qu'on avait mis en place. Merci beaucoup de votre attention.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Merci infiniment à son Excellence Mahamadou Issoufou d'avoir partagé avec nous son expérience, son expertise et surtout ses recommandations. Alors avant de poursuivre, je voudrais quand même saluer la présence de deux représentants que j'ai vus. Je me dois forcément de reconnaître la présence du ministre Sanogo qui représente son Excellence Alassane Ouattara, donc de Côte d'Ivoire, aujourd'hui présent. Merci. Ainsi que le ministre Henri-Claude Oyima qui représente le Gabon et le président Brice Clotaire Oligui Nguema également présent aujourd'hui. Et je pense que la question, the next question
is the same question to His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo, President of Ghana.
Moderator, thank you very much for the opportunity. And like my colleagues, I would like to begin by thanking Professor Rama for the invitation to join the Assembly today, and also to wish him the best of luck in his new career. He has been an outstanding champion of the African cause, and all of us should thank him very much for the work that he has done. I, in Ghana, as President of Ghana, have a particular reason for being always very solicitous of the welfare of Orama. At the time of the difficulties that the COVID-19 brought to us and our access to the capital markets of the world, AfreximBank is the one that came to our aid, gave us $750 million at a time when we couldn't access the capital markets of the world. Everybody was turning their back on us, but Orama stepped in and helped us. So as far as that's concerned, I will always be extremely grateful and solicitous of his welfare. I think that the discussion that we're having, and the discussion that we have been having on the continent in the last 2 or 3 decades, all point to one fundamental fact. The institutions that we need to propel our development up till today are not in our hands. Prime Minister Patterson talked about the structure of the IMF. And he was illustrating one simple point. If you don't control the institutions of finance, you will not be able to finance your development. And I think that that is the matter that we need to pay the greatest attention to. How do we develop institutions that can enable us fund our development that we ourselves control? 2 or 3 small examples. AfreximBank today, I think, has a share capital of some $6 billion United States dollars. I'm right, somewhere in that arena. The Japan Bank for International Cooperation has a share capital of nearly 20 billion United States dollars. The Chinese Exim Bank's figures are in the region of $55 billion. That is all the difference between what Japan can do to fund its development and what we can do to fund our development. So there's a need for us to focus or what is it that we can do to transform the situation? In 2024, which is the last year I was president of Ghana, I made a proposal at the AU that each one of the 54 countries on the continent should in future deposit 30% of its sovereign reserves with African multilateral institutions. For the simple reason that these reserves are lying in foreign banks, passive, in some cases deriving negative interest, and yet we are unable to fund our development. And it can only be done if we strengthen our own institutions like the AfreximBank, the ADB, etc. And for that to happen, we have to put our mouth where our thoughts are. We've got to be able to say to ourselves that if we are serious about the development of this continent, let us make the decisions that will enable us to resolve our problems. We can't do it. We can't do it just by talking. We have to do it by acting. And acting means what? Acting means, Professor Sachs says we have the money. Fair enough. If we can find the money, let us use it to develop our own institutions. Let's step back from the discussion, the eternal discussion about debt. We are not going to get any relief of any significant nature from the Western powers as far as debt is concerned. We're asked to pay a risk premium paid by people whose default rates are lower than comparable debts in other regions of the country, whose recovery rates are higher than it is from other areas of the world, largely because of what? Prejudice and exploitation. And we have to understand this situation in order for us to be able to diagnose and do the right thing. But the most critical, the institutions that will enable us to fund our development, the African Central Bank that has been on the table for the last 20 years, headquartered in Lagos in Nigeria, the African Investment Bank, which has also been on the table for the same period, the African Monetary Fund, which has been on the table for the same period. None of these institutions are yet anywhere near being operational. Why is that? Those are decisions we can take for ourselves, and they are the decisions that we need to take. And these are the few comments I make.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. He makes such a good point. Remember yesterday's conversation with Professor Mabubani, where he said that risk premium, Your Excellency, is beneficial to those investors abroad. If they can lift that perception of risk, they charge more. It's just simple mathematics. Back to you.
Okay. So we will go to our last question, and we'll ask three respondents to offer very brief thoughts. We'll go to the Prime Minister of Bahamas first, and then the Prime Minister of Grenada, and then we will go to His Excellency Musa Sanago, who is the Minister of State-Owned Enterprises and Assets, representing the head of state of Cote d'Ivoire. Now, this is the question. Now that the world is discovering that the dollar and the euro are fiat currencies without anchor, what are Caribbean leaders doing, and African leaders doing or should be doing on these shifts in global currency awareness? As you look into the future, what currency should we be using to trade? So, His Excellency, the Prime Minister of Bahamas.
I think the question is very timely, particularly when we consider what the global economic landscape is today, being defined by global uncertainty, the uncertainty that attends us, and the decline of multilateralism. In that context, when we consider currencies and what it is. For the Bahamas, for example, and many other jurisdictions in the Caribbean, our currency, the Bahamian dollar, and a lot of other CARICOM currencies is pegged to the US dollar and the US dollar alone. For us, we should be considering having a basket of currencies to peg our dollar to, and that's what we are thinking and trying to advance at this moment. And for me, and when we talk about trade and how trade is, where currency is necessary for trade and the disparity or the differences in our currencies, what I would like for consideration to be given is for the development of a digital currency to which all the African countries and CARICOM countries could be a part of for the purposes of facilitating trade, just as the PAPS initiative is facilitating trade in the African countries, and we are now piloting it in the Caribbean to see how it could facilitate trade amongst ourselves and Africa. Perhaps we could also move to what I call a virtual currency that we can advance for the purposes of assisting and facilitating trade.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We'll go to the Prime Minister of Grenada.
Thank you very much, and let me again thank Professor for having us all here. At the risk of not being redundant, I think it's important to re-emphasize that in the case of Africa, you probably have 54 different currencies. And so if we talk about how we move forward, it also means, I think in this case, getting us to a point where, incidentally in the Caribbean, we may have about 8 different currencies as well. So it obviously means a consolidation of less currencies that we can all work towards ultimately getting us to a point where there is an African currency that includes the diaspora. And if we're able to do so, it's not just about trade, it's also about the movement of people. Because as someone reminded me today, you could be a Nigerian who invests in the US, but you may not be a Nigerian who can get to the US because you don't get a visa to go to the US. So if we have the currencies that allow us to trade with ourselves, then there's really no need to go to the US. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And we will go to the His Excellency Musa Sanogo of Côte d'Ivoire.
Sorry. Okay.
Thank you.
OK. Merci beaucoup. Alors, je voudrais déjà transmettre les salutations du président Ouattara à AfreximBank et à l'ensemble des autorités ici présentes. Alors, comme je sais que nous avons un problème de temps, alors vous avez posé des questions sur la problématique de la monnaie. C'est une question extrêmement importante, aussi bien en Afrique de l'Ouest, puisque dans ce processus de création de monnaie unique, et que dans plusieurs communautés économiques régionales africaines, à la vérité, la problématique de monnaie encre est surtout la résultante de la réalité commerciale et de la réalité des échanges. Si nous savons davantage échanger entre nos pays africains, nous n'avons pas besoin de chercher une monnaie encre qui nous permettrait d'être davantage impliqués, insérés dans le commerce international. Mais être capable d'échanger davantage entre nos pays africains, ça suppose que nous serons capables de produire déjà davantage, puisqu'on ne peut échanger que ce qu'on produit. Donc si nous sommes capables de travailler à améliorer la production, la qualité de la production dans nos différentes économies, alors nous serons capables d'échanger davantage, alors nous serons capables d'avoir une monnaie commune qui ne nécessitera pas d'avoir une encre. Et je voudrais finir peut-être sur ce point. Aujourd'hui en Côte d'Ivoire, nous avons beaucoup progressé en termes de production de produits transformés Nous sommes premier producteur mondial de cacao, suivi par nos frères du Ghana. Et nous sommes aujourd'hui à 40% du taux de transformation. Et premier producteur mondial de noix de cajou. Et aujourd'hui, nous sommes à 30% du taux de transformation. Nous espérons, à l'horizon 2030, pouvoir transformer toute notre production sur place et avoir beaucoup plus d'échanges avec nos partenaires africains. Je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup.
The final word. We are going to the Vice President of Tanzania, His Excellency Dr. Philip Mpango. But as we go to him, I also want to recognize two people who are present with us. From Kenya, His Excellency Dr. Musalia Mudavadi, who is the Prime Cabinet Secretary. And then we have representing the President of Congo, the Minister of Finance, Budget and Public Portfolio, His Excellency Yuka Christian. So if we could recognize that.
Yeah, yes, I think they deserve more of a round of applause because of time, we can't get to them. They're gracious enough to cede the microphone, and this goes for all the representatives that I apologize we didn't get to. I wish God could give me another hour, but alas, I don't have that power. But His Excellency, the Vice President of Tanzania is here. The Vice President of Tanzania has the last word. Please welcome the words of Dr. Philip Isdor Mpanga.
Well, first, again, to join the others, to thank Professor Benedict for bringing us all here together, but even more for the great service to our continent as head of the AfreximBank over the last couple of years. Congratulations, and we wish you a good life post this particular assignment. I want to make one important, I think, remark as we conclude. We who are currently in office, I think, need to realize that the global economy that we are in is not only fragile, but it differs from country to country in our continent. And therefore, what is important first, I think, is to consolidate, build resilience of the economies of our region. And for this, I want to point out a few areas. One, make sure that the macroeconomic fundamentals are right. And in particular, I don't see any reason at all why Africa should continue importing food from outside. And therefore, we need to keep our handle on food inflation. Second is on energy-driven inflation. We can collaborate as African countries to make sure that energy inflation is contained, and these are two major drivers of instabilities. So this is one important point. The second important point, the global turbulences should be a lesson to all of us to collaborate even more within the African continent. So there are regional projects that we need to work together. Africa is disconnected, continues to be disconnected. Why don't we work on regional transportation projects, work on regional or power interconnectors so that we are able to put together our resources with the support of regional development banks like AfreximBank. And finally, I think it is very important that all of us in the continent, we tap the ingenuity of our young people, right from the leadership positions. It's very important that we groom our young people and already put them in position to take over the African leadership. So I thought I should say those to conclude our very good discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will be remiss. I want to acknowledge, though not speaking, that we have in the room the rep for the President of Chad, who is the Minister of Finance. So let me thank all our contributors for this wonderful engagement. It is difficult to squeeze such distinguished gentlemen into this short period. So let's a round of applause for our distinguished contributors, and then let me call Mark to come and tell us what is. There you are. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor, for steering that so amiably. One last thing before we go to a break, and then when we come back, His Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and other dignitaries will join our wonderful sitting presidents, former presidents, vice presidents, presidential representatives for the official opening of the AAM 2025. So before we do that, one last thing. I said it's not just about talk. I said it's also about walk when we come to these annual meetings of AfreximBank. We're going to do one last thing, and this is truly a milestone in Africa's financial journey. It is the PAPS card launch, the PAPS card launch, the Pan-African Card Scheme. This is the official unveiling of this first ever Pan-African Card Scheme, and it's a groundbreaking innovation. It's the fruit of a collaboration between PAPS and Mercury Payment Services. I've got mine. PAPS card is set to revolutionize the way individuals, SMEs, businesses transact across the continent. The PAPS card not only reduces costs and streamlines payments, but also ensures that our data, very important, and the value remains within Africa's borders, empowering us all. The PAPS card ensures that retail payments, sovereignty, and interoperability is a definite. Now, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the future of payment, made in Africa, by Africa, for Africa. So now, to do the official launch of the PAPS card, I will now invite a number of people to the stage. First of all, those that have done some heavy lifting on this, I'm going to invite to the stage to give the cards. I'm going to ask you to assist me to give the cards, their first cards. Heads of states will get the first cards. So please welcome Mike Ogbalu, who is the CEO of PAPS, the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System. Very hardworking guy, Mike, but always smiling. What is that about? Mr. Bosco Sebabi is the acting CEO of PAPS Card, so he's the one that actually is in that division. Bosco, please join us, Sebabi. Mr. Muzaffer Koka, chairman of Mercury. You remember I mentioned that Mercury were involved in the production and Mercury payment systems. Give them a round of applause. These are the engines behind the PAPS cards. Now, I will invite in this order, I'm going to invite the heads of state here present and those representing heads of states to come join us on the stage for this official launch. If you are representing a head of state, or indeed if you are the head of state, like the President of Malawi and our brothers from the Caribbean, please join us on the stage and give them a round of applause as they come onto the stage to launch the PAP card. I will also ask Professor Orama. This is, you are the leader behind this. Please join us. Former heads of state, please join us as well. Former heads of state are very, very welcome. President Obasanjo, Mamadou Issoufou, President Mamadou Issoufou, President Macky Sall, and others, please join for this momentous occasion. You're also very welcome. And if there are any sitting ministers here that are here with the president, you're also welcome to join. There's a lot of finance ministers in the place. I would also invite onto the stage for this group photo from AfreximBank, Mr. Dennis Denya, Senior EVP. George, are you George Elombi? You heard from him earlier. Please, George, come and join us, EVP from AfreximBank. And Haitham El Mayergi, EVP. Mr. Ekene Uzo, who is the Direct Group Management Office for AfreximBank, Mrs. Marlene Ngoye, the CEO of FEDA, please join us, Muzaffer Hamid, CEO of Mercury, Mrs. Desire Rumanyika from the Bank of Kigali, please join us. And also from I&M Bank Rwanda, Mr. Henry, please join us here. And if one of my colleagues can help me to organize the picture, that would be wonderful. I know they're listening backstage. Could you come and help me? Maybe my fellow MC. I need a pair of hands, please. Mr. Blaise Gasabari, CEO of R-Switch, and Dr. Agada Apochi, who's the CEO of Unified Payments. Now, as we assemble, Mike Ogbalu, Mr. Mike Ogbalu, Mike, we have cards to give to them, not right? We actually have physical cards. I need you to help me here to assemble the heads of states and for the photo and give, I know you have a limited number of cards, you give the cards to whoever you want to give the cards to. So please go ahead, come on, let's do that. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask all of you, to organize yourself in a group family photo for the PAPS card launch program. If I could have the heads of states and former heads of states at the front, please. And if you could assemble behind them, please don't block a head of state or a former head of state or a representative of a head of state. Please, if you don't fit that description, please stand behind.
Les chefs d'État sont invités, anciens chefs d'État sont invités à se positionner sur la ligne de devant afin qu'on puisse prendre la photo.
Okay, I'm going to ask. So he said to the Prime Minister of Bahamas, he said very soon he will have his card. He said very soon he will have his card. One of the first cards will go to you, Your Excellency. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, cameraman, are they ready? Yes, okay. So, how does that look? That looks definitely like a family. Doesn't it look like a family, ladies and gentlemen?
A beautiful family indeed.
If I could ask you to close in a little bit, the wide-angled lens is struggling, so just pull in a little bit on the sides there. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a true milestone in Africa's financial journey. The official unveiling of the PAPS card, the first ever Pan-African card scheme. It's a groundbreaking innovation. Let's take this photo now, ladies and gentlemen. You pulled out the cards. That's even better. That's even better. Let's see the cards. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, after 1, 2, 3, all say PAPS. 1, 2, 3. You've just witnessed history. Round of applause, please. Okay, if I would ask you to please exit the stage carefully, please.
Nous vous invitons à redescendre, mesdames et messieurs, après cette belle photo.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, now I'm going to ask you to remain in your seats, please, so that we have an organized, and the heads of state, representatives, now you're going to go to lunch. You're going to go to lunch, so we are going to allow them to exit the building. Please remain at your seat. Let them exit the building, and then we will go to lunch. Okay, so please allow the heads of states, representatives of heads of states, and former heads of states to exit the building first, please. Do not rush. Sit down. Madam, please. Madam, I said sit down. Madam.
Mesdames et messieurs, nous vous invitons à patienter pendant que les anciens chefs d'État, les chefs d'État
The
quittent
hardest
la
part
salle.
of the job. I'm telling you. The hardest part of the job. Okay. Please remain in your seats for the heads of states to exit the room. We'll be back here again shortly. So, ladies and gentlemen, the program starts at 2 p.m. 2 p.m. The official opening at 2 p.m. Be seated before 2 p.m. Otherwise, you might not get a seat. It's going to be standing room only. 2 p.m., ladies and gentlemen, 2 p.m.
Mesdames et messieurs, l'heure où nous allons nous retrouver ici est 14h. Nous vous prions de bien vouloir revenir et être assis ici dans cette salle à 14h si vous voulez pouvoir assister à cette cérémonie. Merci bien.